Hey you guys, we are here approaching another new moon. It is the beginning of a new Hebrew month on November 20th sundown to November 21st sundown. We'll begin the first of the month of Kislev. This is the 9th month on the sacred calendar given to Moses and the 3rd month for the civil calendar or creation calendar. You know the drill. We're going to take a look at the biblical history and biblical meaning tied to this month of Kislev. And we're also going to take a look at the heavens and the heavens' influence on this month. We understand from the book of Job that the sun, moon, and the stars have an influence on humanity, and they perform the will of the Lord. According to Psalm 19, they give forth speech and wisdom day after day, night after night. And God is the one who has set them in their orders, who calls them all by name, and the only one who can call them forth at the proper time and season, keeping the time clock of God in proper order. The heavens is the clock of God, keeps divine order and governance in the earth. This is the system that the Lord uses to influence humanity according to his will, his purpose, and according to Bible prophecy. So we take a look at the heavenly bodies and we interpret them according to the Spirit of the Lord. We do not worship stars. We do not bow down to gods that have been assigned to the stars by false principles and religious systems. We believe that God has created the heavens, and therefore it is God who gives the wisdom and the purpose to the heavenly bodies. And so we honor that here. We take a look at the heavenly bodies, and this helps us to receive wisdom and teaching that will help us align with heaven, that will help us be seated in heavenly places and operating from heavenly places, not leaning on our own understanding, but in all our ways, acknowledging God through creation in order to perform his will, in order to be in step with his divine timing. So in this month we are approaching, it is the 3rd month on the creation calendar. Now, the creation calendar, also known as the civil calendar, they used this calendar for kings, births, and contracts. And the sacred calendar, this is the 9th month. This is the sacred calendar is the calendar that was given to Moses at Passover, okay, when they were coming out of Egypt. And the sacred calendar is used for festivals and feast days. Okay, so they had their different uses. Neither calendar is wrong. It just depends on what information you are trying to access that will be helpful to you. Both are packed with revelation and wisdom and history. And so we are going to take a look at this month of Kislev. And the month of Kislev is about security and trust. Okay, now the biblical new moon is different from the Western new moon, and the Western new moon is on November 19th and 20th. The biblical new moon is on November 20th and 21st. So there's a slight difference. The biblical new moon is at the waxing crescent, when that first sliver comes forth, that first sliver of light. That is when the Bible says is the new moon and the start of a new Hebrew month. Both have wisdom and information that is beneficial to look at. So I usually take a look at both, or mention both, and just mention what I find important to reference according to what the Lord reveals to me to share and what is important to mention. Now, this new moon is a new moon in the constellation Sagittarius. On the 20th, 21st of November, the moon will be in Sagittarius and the sun will be in Sagittarius at this time. And the sign of Sagittarius is literally in the heavens and marks the beginning of the month of Kislev. And this is why Sagittarius has been ordered by God to come forth at the month of Kislev. And the constellation Sagittarius is associated with the tribe of Benjamin. And the tribe of Benjamin was known for being skilled in the art of the bow and arrow. They were skilled hunters in the art of the bow and arrow. And this has to do with this month being a month for strategy, for hitting our target. Okay, Sagittarius, the sign of Sagittarius is about philosophy, so wisdom, knowledge, travel, ethics, worldview, exploration, and spirituality. It's about having vision. The phrase associated with Sagittarius is the phrase "I see." So I believe it's about revelation, about having prophetic sight and being able to use that prophetic sight and revelation to hit our targets. The ruling planet for the sign of Sagittarius is the planet Jupiter, which is my favorite planet, one of my favorites, because it represents Christ as the bridegroom. It represents abundance, expansion, blessings. Okay, so this gives us an idea of what this month is also about. It's about expansion and blessings. The Hebrew letter associated with the month of Kislev is the Hebrew letter Samech, and it is the number 60. It's represented by the number 60, which means coming full circle. This letter means coming full circle. So things are coming full circle and into manifestation. And we said that on the sacred calendar given to Moses, the month of Kislev is the 9th month. And then number 9 is associated with fullness, with birthing, with harvest, with perfection, and with divine completeness. So 9 months it takes to birth a baby. So there is a spiritual birth taking place. So we see that these numbers are about coming full circle and about fullness, birthing, harvest, perfection, and divine completion. There is a completion that has taken place. There has been a death. We're exiting death into rebirth, judgment into the promise, into covenant promise, into promised land, into new beginnings, a time of harvest. The month of Kislev is about receiving the promises of God and also about assessing and evaluating how we are allowing them to be administered to our life. And this is going to help us understand how we are advancing into our apostolic and prophetic destiny. Okay, this month is tied to apostolic and prophetic destiny because, as I mentioned, this month is associated with the tribe of Benjamin. And the tribe of Benjamin was the 12th son of Jacob. And the birth of Benjamin brought about this apostolic fullness and a type of kingdom governmental perfection. The tribe of Benjamin was the 12th son, so he completed the 12 tribes of Israel. He was the last of the tribes to be conceived, and Benjamin was the only son that was conceived after Jacob's transition from Jacob to Israel. And Benjamin was also the only son born in the promised land. And so we see that Benjamin also represents this birthing of the government of God, the fullness or the completeness of God's government, his kingdom. And we know that his kingdom is built upon the apostles. Okay, so this month, it's important that we reflect on each one of our apostolic and prophetic mandates for our life, and that we review things and we see how we are administering the prophetic destiny and call of God for our life. The month of Kislev is the month to enter a new level of trust and rest. It is about resting, but it is also a month to develop warfare strategies and to have prophetic revelation for warfare. And I want people to understand that warfare doesn't always mean that you have to do this long list of things to be effective in warfare. Okay? A lot of times, to be effective in warfare, we simply need to do very practical things in our day-to-day. And one of the ways to be on the offense in warfare is to walk humbly and to walk in integrity of character. If you do these two things, then you will pretty much be untouchable by any attack that would try to come your way. It will not prosper. It may form, but it will not prosper. So yes, prayer and fasting and reading the word is essential and it's wonderful, but do not beat yourself up because you didn't spend 2 hours in the word and in prayer. Pray as you go throughout your day, always praying without ceasing. always interacting and in relationship with the Lord. But the Lord understands that we have very demanding lives here, especially if you're like me, who is a single mother, running my own business. It's a lot. But if you walk in integrity of character, and you walk in humility, and you walk in constant communication and gratitude with the Lord, this is an effective way of warfare, strategic warfare. And so it doesn't necessarily have to always be burdensome or heavy or toilsome. There are times when we must toil with some things, where we must wrestle for some things in the spirit, and God will give us discernment. But there's a way to walk offensively and strategically, where his burden is easy and the Lord's yoke is light. The Hebrew month of Kislev is about examining our hearts and the motives of our heart, so we can break out of old patterns and mistrust. Because remember, I mentioned how this month is a month for greater trust. So it's important that we rest, and while we rest, we also reflect and examine our heart and our motives, and make sure that we're breaking out of old patterns and anywhere that there's been mistrust or a lack of trust or a lack of faith. And then the month of Kislev is a time to fight against empires and cultures. So it means we're standing firm as kingdom representatives. We're standing firm in kingdom character and culture. We can still have our own unique personalities, and we all come from different backgrounds and different cultures, and that plays a part in who we are and the unique expression that we are, and that's fine and that's great. But we are to stand as kingdom representatives and not give into a wicked or perverse culture, even though we are surrounded by a lot of ungodliness. And we don't have to be arrogant about how we represent the kingdom. There's a time for boldness, but we should also be willing to become all things to all people so that we can win them to Christ. And so as long as we keep that anchor of the fruit of the Spirit, patience, love, kindness, humility, long-suffering, joy, all the fruits of the Spirit, when we operate from the fruits of the Spirit, then we become effective in being received by others, so that we can administer the love of God and the wisdom of God. And even if we don't have an opportunity to preach or to speak, we know that the way that we operate in our life speaks for itself without a word needing to be said. It is illustrated in the way that we carry ourselves, and in the way that we consider others and respect others and love others with the love of God. Now I'm going to go over some things that are in our heavens around the time of this new moon, and we'll go over their influences. So we have the star Algol at play, which is the Medusa star, or the demon star, the death star. Okay, and we have this star on the sun of the New York Stock Exchange chart. Now the sun represents vitality, or the power source. Okay, so the death star, the demon star, Medusa, is on top of the sun, the life force, the vitality of the New York Stock Exchange. Okay, so we could see some financial turbulence or effect or influence from this that's going on with the star Algol. Okay, and the star Algol is also going to be close to Candace Owens' Mercury. Okay, and the planet Mercury is about communication. Okay, the star Algol represents demonic warfare or death, and since it's on her or close to her Mercury, this could mean that she will be censored, which is of no surprise that we're seeing this in the heavens, because we're already seeing censorship. So there could be just more of a push to censor her. We have the asteroid typhoon at play, and the asteroid typhoon is representative of Noah from the Bible, Noah's flood. So this asteroid represents, literally, it can mean that we can see flooding or hurricanes or storms become active, and symbolically it can represent judgment, right? And so we could see people or nations, places come under judgment, right? And we know that last month began the 40 days of rain when the flooding began. And it's actually the 27th of Kislev that will be the date of the rains coming to a stop. And this marks a period of completion and renewal, a new beginning. The 27th of Kislev is landing on December 17th this year. This will mark the end of the flood of Noah, when the waters finally ceased and the judgment was over and a new beginning began for Noah and his family, for the righteous. Now, we also have the asteroid Ceto, or Cetus, the sea monster, which I've done multiple videos on, deep dives on. Okay, Ceto, or this asteroid, represents Cetus, the sea monster, or Leviathan, okay, or Hell, Hades, Jonah the whale. So Cetus is representative of Leviathan, also representative of Jonah in the belly of the whale, or the sea monster, which represents Hades, overcoming death, which we're just moving out of from Chesvan last month into Kislev, into a month of new beginning, new adventure. And we also have the asteroid Nemesis, okay? And this asteroid Nemesis represents divine justice against pride, or people who commit heinous crimes. Okay, so we have asteroid Cetus and Nemesis. Okay, and what is Cetus? Is Leviathan. And who is Leviathan? The king of pride, right? And since we see the asteroid Nemesis in the heavens, we see that this asteroid brings forth divine justice against pride, or people who commit heinous crimes. And for the last 2 days, I've been seeing I saw two different a truck and a trailer that was sitting in a parking lot, and they both said something to the effect of like sea monster. And so I kept having sea monster come forth, and as I started doing this breakdown and seeing this asteroid in the heavens, it was just confirmation of why God was showing me this. So the sons of pride are going to be brought to divine justice, okay? And that's showing forth and being released. That influence is being released from the heavens at the time, around the time of this new moon. Now, we also have the asteroid Grieve coming out at this time. And Grieve is about funerals and grieving, okay? We have the asteroid Chaos and the asteroid, which is self-explanatory, and we have the asteroid Ascalaphus, which is associated with whistleblowers. Okay, and according to the Western new moon, they see the new moon as being in Scorpio. The biblical new moon is actually in Sagittarius. So both, like as I said, both have important information. The Western new moon really is like the end of the cycle, like the final stand of the previous cycle. It's like where the door finally closes, and the biblical new moon is where that door finally cracks open. That first slither of light finally cracks open, right? So it's good to look at the Western new moon because it'll show you kind of and give you an overview of what's finishing, what's completing. So it's a lot of Scorpio themed influence that is closing out, right? And you can look at each month and each cycle of the zodiac as it comes forward into its time. It takes the entire month to accumulate and to build that energy, that influence, and to then kind of fully release its influence. And we're at the biblical new moon, that's where we're starting to build up a new energy, a new influence, a new cycle that's being created and implemented and released. And so we see through these asteroids, through the stars, through the sun and the moon, we see a picture in the heavens. It's giving us a picture of what we can expect moving forward. And so we're seeing judgment, we're seeing whistleblowers. Okay, we have currently Mercury is in retrograde in the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so this is about whistleblowers and leaked information, secrets being revealed, and this is just in addition to everything else that we have going on as far as the asteroid typhoon that represents the flood and judgment, and Cetus, the king of pride, and Nemesis, the one who brings divine justice against pride and people who commit heinous crimes. Now, there's been, when we talk about Mercury is about communication. It's about, information, about media, information that comes through the media, through your devices, right? And it being retrograde means it's revisiting something. It's revisiting something that needs to be relooked, right? And it being in Scorpio is the sign of, it's the sign of the sex organs, right? So it has to do with sexuality. And if you notice, there's been a lot of talk about the Epstein files, right? And there's been more push for the releasing of the files, right? And another thing that I felt I needed to mention was that Black Moon Lilith, I had talked about when it entered Scorpio, which was back in March 27th, 2025. Black Moon Lilith entered Scorpio. Now, don't get caught up with, Lilith and the mythology of what Lilith means. People assign names that help them understand stories, that help them understand what these luminaries represent. And in this case, the Black Moon Lilith is not actually a star. It's actually a void. It's actually a dark void, a space in the heavens. But this Black Moon Lilith entered Scorpio on March 27th, and it stays in a sign for 9 months. Okay, so there we have again 9 months, something being birthed, a cycle. A cycle began on March 27th, and I did a breakdown about this and how it also has to do with the place where you are rejected, kind of outcasted by society, but it also has to do with sexual abuse. It can be about sexual abuse. My Black Moon Lilith is actually in the sign of Scorpio. So the fact that Black Moon Lilith is in the sign of Scorpio for the collective at this time, that definitely affects me more significantly, since my personal chart has my Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. And I am someone who has undergone abuse, sexual abuse. And actually, I've talked to you guys about Neptune having gone retrograde in the sign of Pisces, and how I've been having the craziest dreams since that began, and I'm still having dreams. One of the dreams that I had recently was of that abuse, and the dream was it was kind of healing in a way, the way that the dream was, and I'm not going to go into it because that's, for me, but it helped me heal in a way. And it was brought up. It wasn't something I was thinking about or that was necessarily on my mind, but it was something that was brought up because this is the close, this is the end of a cycle. And so God's been just kind of bringing up stuff that needs to be brought to the surface and released, because I'm entering a new cycle. Many of us who have chosen to surrender to this process with God, we're moving into a new cycle. We're moving into promised land. We're moving into a new spiritual birth and a new beginning, a new level with God. And so this is why a lot of things have been coming up. And Scorpio is about death and rebirth. So we're going to have Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Scorpio until December 20th, 2025. So this 9-month transformation, because Scorpio represents transformation, death and rebirth, I find it all very interesting that this Epstein stuff is really coming forth at this time, where we see a lot of things in Scorpio. This new moon is also going to have an influence on the charts of King Charles and Biden, as well as Epstein. Now, when a person passes away, their chart and their influence in the heavens is still in operation. So how this new moon is going to affect Epstein's chart, how it looks in correlation with Epstein's chart, is definitely showing that there could be more information, more whistleblowing, more exposure of the Epstein case. Okay. And Biden, this is affecting him as well. And I believe, with what the heavens has going on, we see, judgment, and we see there's a kite happening in the sky. And when a kite takes place, it signals a traumatic world event. So we could see a traumatic world event. For an example, 9/11 was a traumatic world event. Okay. And remember, we have the asteroid Grieve, chaos, okay, in the mix. So Grieve is about funerals. And I had mentioned about how Biden very well could be passing soon. Okay. So that's still a possibility. And I had shared a dream that a sister had about Biden had passed, and everyone was mourning, and they were doing, what they do, like when a president or ex-president passes, they were doing some kind of ceremony, right? And King Charles is having some health issues as well, right? And BB is still a lot going on there. I think the Lord is bringing judgment and exposure, and I don't think it's going to go the way that they're trying to portray it. And so I'm just focused on what I'm receiving in my one-on-one relationship with the Lord, and what I see in the heavens as an influence that also confirms a lot of the things that God shares with me. And it's just additional confirmation. Now, some biblical historical events is that on the 15th of Kislev, the Greeks set up the abomination of desolation in the temple in 167 BCE, a key event leading to the Maccabean revolt. Okay, so I thought that was interesting, right? And then on the 25th of Kislev will be the Hanukkah miracle. It marks the rededication of the second temple and the miraculous 8-day burning of the oil. We mentioned how the 27th of Kislev, the rains of the great flood ceased. And on the 20th of Kislev, Ezra delivers a historic address to a 3-day assembly of Jews. And then the symbolic significance of the month of Kislev is light over darkness. Kislev is the darkest month, and it is symbolic of hope and light emerging from darkness, which is a central theme to Hanukkah. This month is associated with the rededication of the temple, symbolizing the renewed commitment to God. Okay, and this month is also, as I had mentioned, about the covenant, because of the rainbow appearing, right? The floodwaters ended. God put the sign of the rainbow in the sky, and gave birth to a covenant life and a new beginning. This month is also associated with dreams, a time for introspection and a period to focus on trusting God's goodness. So this month is a time for new beginnings. We're transitioning from judgment into new beginnings, into new adventure, into a new level of trust, right? I'm sure Noah had a new level of trust for the Most High when the floodwaters came and he was able to get on the ark and he was protected. He had a new level of trust and began new adventures and had a new level of freedom. So this is what this month is about. It's about a new level of freedom, of trust, and new beginnings. And It is about expansion. Remember that Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. And so it's about blessings and expansion, and about the Lord governing his people, making us a city on a hill, making us to be light in the darkness, performing miracles on our behalf, and delivering us into the promise and into our apostolic assignments. And so I'm excited for this month, and I'm happy to be moving out of all this scorpionic energy. But we're still going to have a lot going on. You know, we live in this world. We see a lot of things going on in the politics, in the government, in the corruption. So I think we're just going to see some big things play out, even all the way to, January, February, March, towards the end of the Hebrew calendar, according to the sacred calendar. Purim is going to be, I believe, in March, this in 2026. We just have some big things happening. I think we're going to see some exposure, things coming to the forefront, people being exposed, whistleblowers continuing to speak, continuing to come forth. I believe the Lord gave me December 23rd and JFK and France and consequences for actions. Now, I don't know if all of that correlates. I don't know what to really do with that, but I'm just releasing it. You know, when we receive things in the spirit, it doesn't always make sense, but it's good to make it a habit to just write notes down, write what you hear, what you see. Even if it doesn't make sense at that time, it might make sense at a later date. It might make sense to someone who needs, confirmation, or needs that puzzle piece to make sense of something that they received. So I just try to make it a habit of just writing down whatever I hear, noting it. The Lord gave me today the number 8282, and I looked that up in the Strong Concordance, and it means to be leader, to set in a row or in order. It also means princess, queen, woman of high rank,